while since I've done one of these. But it's Halloween and I want to get into the mood a little bit. So let's see, what do we got? To answer everyone's question, I have no idea what this was supposed to be. This is just the only like Halloween makeup I could find. So what we're gonna do today is we are going to go into the depths, the deep dark depths of Jazz's Arty Games. And we're gonna create a story from some weird and crazy prompts. And we're gonna make it scary. But there's a thing that we have to do here, because we have to put some limits on this. And the limit that we're gonna put here, in the past we've done like 500 word limits or things like that. This time, we're just going to have a timer, but it's gonna be a really, really freaking intense timer. We're gonna put this at 20 minutes. The story must be complete. It needs to involve the prompts that we get from Jazz's Arty Games, of which we'll just do 2 characters in Jazz's Arty Games and see what we get from there. And it has to be a horror film or horror genre. And we need to do it in a way that actually ends the story, because I really suck at ending these short stories. And what I want to challenge you all to do here is in the comment section below, write your own version. Just keep it to the same requirements. 15 minutes of writing, and that's it. Set a timer, and you're good to go. All right, so we've got the app. We're gonna make our decisions. We are picking 2 characters. Both characters must be in some way involved in this horror story. Could simply be them dying off. But they do have to be included. Let's see what we got. First character is going to be a fighter that is into men's fashion who is carrying a huge bag on their back. Could do a lot with that, I think. I think that's a pretty good one. That's a good, I think that is a very solid one. Character number 2, which could be the horror creature, could be the victim. We don't know yet. We're still gonna find that out. Our second character is going to be a lowly shopkeeper that likes the opera who's wearing a baggy sweater. That sounds like a horror, like that sounds like the villain, doesn't it? You still just have to wait and find out. It was another boring winter evening like any other in the shop. Petchke was looking forward to heading home. Inventory was finished and he was about to lock up for the night. He was just making his final rounds, humming one of the more sorrowful songs of an opera he'd seen recently. A sad little tale about a daughter who froze to death out in the cold when her family, of all people, cast her out. They said for some time that it was based off a true story, but Petchke refused to believe that. It was just too sad to consider what happened to that poor girl and think people could be so callous and cast them out into the cold. Petchke had already thrown on his baggy sweater and he was ready to head out into the night when the doorbell chimed. "We're closed," he called. "Ah, come on, it says 9:30. It's only 9:20, Pops," a man said. He must have been in his mid-20s with a chiseled jaw, clean-shaven face, and inexplicably wearing sunglasses at 9:20 at night. Petchke started to complain, ready to boot the man from the shop, but he glanced back over his shoulder at the counter. It had been a slow day. very slow. He needed a sale, and this stranger might just be one. With a shrug of his old shoulders, he put on his customer service face and forced a smile. "You're right, of course. How can I help you today?" The young man sidled up and flashed him a bright grin. "I need a new outfit, top to bottom. I've got a fight coming up, and I need to look real fucking good at the after party while I'm celebrating my victory." The doorbell chimed again. Petchke let out a low whistle and glanced toward the door to see who else had come in. He immediately sighed with relief, seeing no one there. It must have just been the wind. One customer was enough this late at night. "Yes, of course, sir." Petchke paused. The man was making a face like he'd just eaten something foul. "You know, on second thought, I think I'll look around myself." He waved a hand at the baggy old sweater Petchke was wearing. "If that's your sense of style, I don't think you can help me very much." No, sir, you see, I was getting ready to leave." Yeah, it's fine. I'll just browse over here." The young man waved at his hand at the shopkeep and wandered over to the long jackets and began perusing through them, making clicking sounds with his tongue. Petchke shrugged and shook his head. He wandered back around the corner and sat down on his stool. He went back to humming the opera, closing his eyes and delving into each note. He followed the sway and dip of the aria, tracing their ups and downs with his fingers in the air. Petchke adored opera, how it could tell stories through music and drama. He was always particularly fond of the darker tales. They made him feel a bit better about his own life, after all. He got so into the opera he must have been swaying on his stool because he almost fell off of it when the customer yelled from the other side of the store. "Oi, do you have a dressing room?" "Yes, first door on the right, around the corner." "One item per person, please." Yeah. The man clicked his tongue again and waved at Petchke. Petchke shook his head and ran a hand over the smooth pad of his head. He turned to the side and jumped. A pale silhouette stood in the doorway, just a few feet away. He couldn't see their face, but they were small. Maybe a child wearing a frilly little dress and no shoes. Their feet were bare and blue-white, like they'd been out in the cold. Hey, what are you doing? You can't be in here." Petchke hurried off of his stool. The child must have snuck in when he thought it was just the wind. He chased after the stranger around the corner in the shop, but when he rounded the corner, no one was there. "Little girl?" No response, just a chattering sound like some small animal or branches on the window. He took a cautious step forward. He'd seen her, he knew it. She'd been standing right there. A sudden chill rose up around him, caressing him like a cold, bitter breeze on winter's day. It curled around him and made him shudder. "Is anyone here?" Nothing but the chill wind outside and the rustling of the obnoxious young man back in the dressing room. Petchke looked around a bit longer, checking between the racks of pants and belts, but nothing, no one. With a shrug, he wandered back to his desk, shaking his head. "You need some new glasses. I think, Petchke, you're starting to see things." The old shopkeep sat back and waited, pulling out a book he'd been reading and thumbing through the pages. He lost himself in its pages, and it was some time before he looked up at the clock and saw the time. 10:50. "Oi, young man, it's far past time you leave." Nothing. Just the wind. "I'm going to throw you out." No response. Just the sound of rattling, like something against the window. Petchke slapped the book down on the table and stormed toward the dressing room. As he got closer, every few steps it got colder and colder. What in the hells? He rounded the corner and came to the dressing room where the young man was. He swung the door open, intent on giving the young fighter a piece of his mind, only to have the man fall forward on top of him. Ah! He crumpled to the floor beneath the man's bulk. The man's full weight was on him, and he was ice cold. Petchke tried to push him off, but couldn't. He was too heavy and too still. He could barely breathe beneath his bulk. "Why would you throw them out in the cold?" a chill voice whispered. It's so cold. Petchke turned his face to see the source of the noise. He saw blue-white bare feet, the base of a frilly dress, and then nothing. The last thing he heard was the chatter of teeth. His teeth.